All right, so metric mania. This first section here, this ladder that we can use to figure out which direction do we need to convert, what's a smaller unit and what's a larger unit. We're going to start out by talking about what units might we be talking about. So the first one, we could be talking about grams, we could be talking about liters, and we could be talking about meters. Grams is a measurement of weight or mass, liters is a measurement of volume, and meters is a measurement of distance. This is a good place for us to start. So any of these words can have the same prefix mean the same thing, and that's what these little ladder boxes are going to help us figure out. So if I wanted to if I had a whole bunch of grams, and instead of talking about 2,043 grams, I wanted to describe it in smaller number increments, I could call it a decagram, which would be 10 grams. 1 decagram is 10 grams. Instead, I could talk about, if I wanted to go even bigger, hectograms. And 1 hectogram is 100 grams. And then we go into the one that you might be most familiar with, which is the kilogram. And a kilogram is worth 1,000 grams. So check out the instructions right here. It says to convert to a larger unit, you want to move the decimal point to the left. So if I had, let's say, 257 grams, there's an invisible decimal point here that I can move to the left. If I want to talk about hectograms, which we don't do very often, if I wanted to talk about hectograms, I would move it 2 to the left. So I would have 2.57 hectograms. But I'm probably going to talk about kilograms, in which case I'm going to talk about 0.257 kilograms. And 0.25 would be a quarter of a kilogram. So I'm slightly more, very tiny amount more, than a quarter kilogram. Now let's say we move in the opposite direction and we start talking about smaller stuff. So if we talked about a decagram, that's actually smaller than a gram. It's 0.1 of a regular gram of whatever it is that you're measuring. And we don't use that one a lot, but we do use centigrams a lot, which is 0.01 of a gram, or a liter, or a meter. You've heard of centimeters. You might have heard of centiliters, but more frequently you're going to hear about milliliters. And that would be 0.001, or 1,000th of a gram, or a liter, or a meter. So again, looking at the instructions up here, if I want to convert to a smaller unit, so let's say I have 10 grams, I want to describe how many centigrams or milligrams I have with, let's use a smaller number, let's say 3 grams. Again, there's an invisible decimal point there, so it would look like that. 3.0 grams is the same as 3 grams. I'm going to move my decimal point to the right as many of these boxes as I move to go from a gram to a milligram. So I've moved 1, 2, 3 boxes, which means I need to add, or rather move that decimal point over 3 times, which means adding 3 zeros. So I would actually have 3,000 milligrams instead of 3 grams. There are times when you're going to measure something as 3,000 milligrams, but usually we wouldn't refer to 3,000 milligrams. We would talk about it being 3 grams. We use the larger unit that we can possibly use. All right, so this next section, now that you've got that idea down, this next section, you're going to figure out which of these is bigger or smaller using this ladder method. So, what is the conversion for 1,000 milligrams? How many grams would that be? What's the correct description of millimeters instead of centimeters? So do a little bit of math, move these decimal points around to figure it out. You don't actually have to divide anything. You just need to move decimal points and add zeros. This bottom section down here, you're just going to say which of these is bigger, this side or this side, by using the little arrows that say this side here is smaller than this side, or whether they are the same size. And then on the back side, you're going to give us the abbreviations for all of these terms, which you should already have done from your tools of the trade investigation. And then you come on down here and again, this isn't going to require any math or calculating. It's just going to require that you're moving decimal points or adding zeros, as the case may be. And then finally down here we get a little bit more complicated with figuring out which of these is bigger, 63 centimeters or 6 meters. So that means you have to know what those units are. Centimeters are smaller than meters, so then you just need to figure out how much smaller. Would I have 63 centimeters being more or less than 6 meters? All right, good luck.